Well, Michael Welner is a leader in the field of forensic psychiatry, an expert in the criminal mind, joins us now from New York. Thank you, sir, for talking to us tonight. And, you know, one thing about this killer, certainly sometimes they're under a shroud of mystery. For this guy, he's published online a 1,500-page manifesto. The judge in the case has talked extensively about him. Now, his own lawyer talking extensively about him. It's not like he's a total mystery to the people out there. From what you know and what you've read, does this man strike you as being insane?
Well, for someone who's written 1,500 pages, he makes it pretty obvious about how lucid he is. The question of whether he's insane has already been answered. He's not. He's actually quite lucid. He's an ideologically motivated man seeking notoriety through a shock crime. A person who tries to shock society by doing something horrible and outrageous, seeking attention, that doesn't make him insane. It makes what he does criminally deviant and unacceptable. There's a question of why perhaps he picked the day he did, but the volume that he's created of how systematic and how premeditated and how thoughtful he's been about the deviance and destructiveness of his crime is clear to me as a professional to be a far departure from mental illness and an insult to those who have real psychiatric illness to suggest that this is a product of insanity. People who have major psychiatric illness don't behave this way.
Well, you know, the argument comes back in this from the lay people who are watching this, saying that anyone who could stand and in a cold, calculated way murder unarmed, innocent kids has to be insane, just based on that level, that his actions by themselves define him as being insane. But why is it that you say otherwise?
I don't think that this is an issue of anyone could possibly do this. The individual who seeks notoriety from a spectacle crime is someone who's wrapped up in the idea of celebrity and wrapped up in the idea of destruction as a form of achieving that identity. That's how it was with Klebold and Harris. That's how it was with Timothy McVeigh. He's been thinking about this for 9 years. He has a fascination with guns. It's important for your viewers to have perhaps a good distinction as they read through his manifesto. A person who has a psychotic illness has ideas that are shared by none. A person who is a fanatic has ideas that are shared by only very few. And a person who is violent takes an ideology that many have and wraps it around him so that he can legitimize what's all about him. This isn't all about his ideology. It's about him becoming a person we're talking about in Canada tonight and people are talking about all over the world. This is how he would have it, but he would have to wrap himself in an ideology to give himself some sense of righteous purpose. That's what it's about, whether the formula is anti-Marxism or whether the formula is anti-federalism or Islamism.
Yeah, because that's another distinction. Some people say, you know, he's a loner for what he's done here because he wasn't part of a group. But that, which made me wonder, what is the difference between a guy who flies a building into the Twin Towers or a guy who takes these weapons to a camp and starts shooting? I mean, the end result is the same, and yet one's branded a terrorist and the other one's then branded, you know, sometimes insane or the loner out there, as if there's some difference between the two, though the ends end up being the same.
Well, it is terrorism, no matter the expression, but there is a way to distinguish it. There is terrorism that arises through group psychology, people feeding off of one another, whether they're in a madrasa or whether they're in an isolated environment that just feeds them with a hatred of a particular group. And then there are the individuals who may have the same ideology, but they're lone wolves or they're solitary actors. They want to transcend, they want to be known, they want to call attention to themselves, and they do something so spectacular and so shocking that we'll be talking about them in the evening. If someone was so tied into his ideology, he would not do something that so offends the sensibilities of Norwegians that those who actually can relate to his ideas would be frightened by the destructive potential. But he was thinking about himself. And when someone who is intelligent enough to compose what he did can do something that so alienates people to the ideology that he wants to advance, but in the process advances himself in terms of the public consciousness, It demonstrates to you and the general public that it's not about the ideology, it's about him. And that's what makes the destructive mass shooter a selfish individual as opposed to an insane one.
Dr. Michael Welner, always great to get your insight. Thank you so much for talking to us tonight. We really do appreciate this.